Good morning, everybody. I'm going to turn my camera on long enough for you to see what I look like and to say hi to you, and then I'm going to turn my camera back off and start presenting to you. Um, so what I'm going to talk about today is mainly there's so much bias around the state or misunderstanding around the state about what CTE is and what our mission is and what we do, that I thought I would just give you a very broad overview of what we are really all about in our office. I think that helps everybody have a better understanding of what our work is and what we're trying to accomplish. We just, right before the whole COVID-19 crisis, toured the entire state, talking to administrators and counselors and everybody to try and get people to understand really what we're trying to do as opposed to what they think we're trying to do. And it's a major difference between those two things in our world. So I'm going to walk you guys through that. If I don't get into specifics enough for you, feel free to chime in on the chat box and tell me that you want other information or additional information, and I'm happy to try and cover all that with you. But I think this presentation is a really good broad overview of what we do and what we're trying to accomplish, and I hope it helps you understand our office a little bit better. So with that, I'm going to stop my video. I'm going to share my screen here and get into the presentation. Okay, so the tour we did around the state, we went to 8 different regional locations around the state. We talked to about 700 people. We called the presentations Make Every Credit Count, because that's really what our mission is to help students make everything that they're doing in school count towards what they're wanting to do after school. So that's what Make Every Credit Count is. That's what CTE is really all about, and that's where I'm going to start today. So I'm Kylie Whitaker. I'm an assistant director with the Office of Career and Technical Education. I handle everything from data to testing to dual credit, Perkins funding, work-based learning. I'm trying to think what else. Occupation-based teacher certification, our TED system, of course. Anyways, so a lot from that perspective. And there's a ton of CTE resources at this URL, this tinyurl.com/MECC, which is Make Every Credit Count 2020. A ton of CTE resources there about everything that we covered during these regional sessions, in case you guys are interested in more of those. Everything in CTE revolves around this right here. And so I want to stop us and talk about data really fast. I don't want to bore people to death on data, but I'm a data dork myself. So we start all of our presentations with this schematic here. And basically what it shows is what happens to our high school graduates when they get out of school. And so if everybody will look at the dark blue coloring here on the person chart, that's every student who went to a post-secondary institution after graduation. So that's 74% of our high school graduates that go on to post-secondary education in one form or another. Where the color changes to the light blue up at the top is the percentage of those students who actually earn something when they're in that post-secondary institution. And so that's only 30%. So right now we have a huge disparity in the number of students and the percentage of our graduates that are going to post-secondary institutions but are not earning anything once they get there. 74% to 30% is pretty dramatic. And so this is where all of CTE's work begins. Before I talk any more about that though, I do need you to understand something. We're not opposed, and people think that we are, opposed to students going to college. In fact, every one of our career pathways has a post-secondary component to it. And so we do expect students to go to college. We expect some kids to go directly in the workplace, but we have 2-year, 4-year doctorate, master's degrees, everything in our career pathways. And so we're not opposed to college. We're just really against not having a plan for students. And so that's really what the whole mission is that I'm going to talk about today. So the very first thing I'm going to do is just show you guys a quick video. It's actually not a quick video. It's about 8 minutes. I hope you'll bear with us. I think this is probably one of the best videos that's ever been created to talk to parents and students about life after high school. So going to show this. Hopefully this is going to play really well for everybody and everybody's going to be able to hear. You know, Luann, I forgot to do the one thing you told me to do before I share my screen. So reshare. Sorry about that, guys. Forgot to turn my sound on. All right, so hopefully you guys can all hear this. Luann, will you give me a thumbs up if you start to hear the sound? Awesome, thank you.
There is a widespread belief that the job market is just waiting for hordes of ambitious, eager young graduates to slide into high-paying jobs in the corner office. They just need to go to college, right? Well, the data tells a different story. Charts like this imply a correlation between higher income and additional education, showing on average that a person with a university degree earns far more money than the average person without a high school diploma. This reliance on averages and perceived higher earnings for having a four-year degree has fueled a college-for-all philosophy, causing educators and parents to encourage going to the university, any university, to major in anything in pursuit of social mobility and financial prosperity. This belief has increased college and university enrollment to an all-time high, resulting in 66% of high school graduates in this country enrolling in higher education right after high school. That's 2 out of 3. The problem isn't that we need more students to attend college. The problem is too many students who enter are not completing. For most college students, it takes too long and they simply lose interest. Others are juggling too much, or they discovered they picked the wrong major or attended the wrong institution for them. Since most students are told a university degree guarantees a higher salary, many delay their career planning until after college graduation, resulting in 62% of students reporting they feel disengaged because they don't see the connection between their coursework and their future career. And so today, only a quarter of those that initially enroll will finish a bachelor's degree. You see, our educational system is very well intentioned, but incredibly misaligned. The pendulum has swung too far towards college preparation at any cost and away from skill attainment. We even encourage a college-going culture as early as elementary school, with university pennants decorating second-grade classrooms, and we spend an exorbitant amount of time in high school getting into college. Education is core to our economy, but in order to guide our educational systems and maximize future income, we must understand this misalignment between education and our workforce. At some point in recent history, we have transitioned from asking the more important question of what knowledge and skills do you need to be employable and to contribute to your community, to now simply asking, where are you going to college? When in reality, not every degree is direct preparation for employment. With rising education costs, a shrinking job market, and the oversaturation of some academic majors in the workforce, graduates take positions that do not require the education they have received, and often with debt they cannot afford. In fact, this misalignment between degrees and job skills causes half of university graduates to be underemployed in what are called gray-collar jobs, and 33% of college graduates are still underemployed well into their 30s. We know that success in today's world depends on aligning students' academics with both their skills and available job opportunities. Yet there is growing evidence of a skills gap in which many Americans are not receiving the essential skills that are needed. Recently, a survey was conducted to find out if the skills found within the local workforce match the skills that employers need in the new economy. We found that employers experience difficulty finding applicants with strong technical skills, as well as problem-solving skills, applied math skills, and basic technical training. Unlike 3 generations ago, having hands-on skills and perfecting what you're good at can be more valuable in today's economy than getting a degree in something simply to get one. In fact, when hiring, business leaders say a candidate's knowledge and applied skills in a specific field are more important factors than where the candidate went to school or their college major. The economy and the world have dramatically changed. In 1960, when taking into account all jobs in the American economy, 20% required a 4-year degree or higher, 20% were technical jobs requiring skilled training, and 60% were classified as unskilled. But what's the right percentage to meet the labor market demand for tomorrow? Georgetown University predicts only 33% of all jobs will require a 4-year degree or more in the future, while the overwhelming majority will be highly skilled jobs requiring professional and technical training at the credential or associate's degree level. The true ratio of jobs in our economy is 1 to 7. For every occupation that requires a master's degree or more, approximately 2 professional jobs require a university degree, and there are over half a dozen jobs requiring a 1-year certificate or 2-year degree. And each of these technicians are in very high-skilled areas that are in great demand. So while most jobs in the future will require some education and training beyond high school, the majority of occupations will not require a bachelor's degree or more. It was the same in 1960, the same in 2000, and will be the same in 2040. Very well intentioned, the recent college for all rhetoric is often misinterpreted as university for all. This message needs to be significantly broadened to a post-high school credential for all. Students at various educational levels have left school without essential skills, setting up our children for failure, costing them and taxpayers millions, all while the labor market is desperate for highly trained, skilled technicians. One of the essential purposes of education should be to help students develop the knowledge and skills needed to search for and obtain work that they find satisfying. Fortunately, today's students no longer need to decide between higher education or career preparation. It's possible and increasingly necessary to achieve both. So how do you position yourself for satisfying in-demand jobs? Let's say you were considering a career as either an electrician or a business manager. You would find that the average annual income for electricians is $53,000, only about half of the $99,000 average wage for management occupations. So at first glance, it looks as if getting a bachelor's degree in business is a no-brainer. But adding skills and ability into the picture adds a whole new dynamic. What if you have the potential to become an excellent electrician, but lack the skills and ability to be an excellent manager? Then you should be looking at projected incomes towards the bottom of the pay scale for managers and towards the top for electricians. You would then discover that electricians near the top of the pay scale make around $90,000, far higher than the income of a manager near the bottom of the pay scale at $44,000. Now, this is just one example, but the concept is true throughout all industries. The claim that you will make more money with an increased amount of education is not necessarily inaccurate, it's just incomplete. That advice is based just on the averages, but no one is perfectly average. Everyone has unique skills, talents, and gifts. Truth is, the income for the top individuals in a wide variety of technical jobs is far higher than the average income for occupations requiring a four-year degree. Nationally, associate degree earners range between $29,000 and $76,000, while bachelor's recipients earn between $37,000 and $102,000. But this data only accounts for the 25th percentile to the 75th percentile of full-time adult workers. This means 25% of associate degree holders earn more than $76,000 annually, while 25% of bachelor's degree holders earn less than $37,000. Our world has changed, and the university degree is no longer the guaranteed path towards financial success as it was for previous generations. And even if you do earn one, that education alone may not be enough. In today's highly technical, knowledge-based economy, employers want to know what you can do, and what you can do well, not just what degree hangs on your wall. And new and emerging occupations in every industry now require a combination of academic knowledge and technical ability. One without the other is insufficient. We need to ensure we're providing students with all the essential skills required to be competitive upon graduation. So before enrolling in classes or deciding what you're going to do next in your life, step one is self-exploration. Take multiple assessments and really analyze your talents and strengths. Step two is career exploration. Understand the jobs available, the income ranges they pay, and evaluate both the knowledge and skills they require. After researching all the possibilities, then engage in career planning by setting a flexible career goal based on your personality and abilities and not just your interests. This doesn't have to be what you want to do for the rest of your life, just set a goal of what you want to do first.
Okay, so thanks for sitting through the video with me. I think that video does a great job of setting up exactly what CTE is all about in our state. We are all about helping students find what it is that they want to do and then creating a roadmap to help them get to where they want to be. So that looks different for every kid. And so what we tell schools is not to try a one-size-fits-all approach to students, that we ought to be meeting with students, talking with students, and doing things for students to help them figure out what it is that they are good at and what they would like to do in the future. And then to create a unique roadmap for them to get to that spot in the future. Too many of our schools right now have a one-size-fits-all mentality, and then when they hear about CTE, they think, oh, that's for those kids who don't want to go to college. CTE is for kids who don't want to go to college. It's for kids who want to get a certificate. It's for kids who want a 2-year degree. It's for kids who want a 4-year degree, a master's degree. etc. So we have programs for everything, and we help students get to their post-high school outcomes regardless of what those look like. And so I just like to set the stage with this video, with this conversation, and with a general overview of what CTE really is all about before I go into anything else. The next thing I like to do is just to bore people to death with facts, with data facts. I don't think these are boring, but I think this is great. I've already shown you the data on the first one. Less than half of our post-secondary students actually earn something. This is not due to post-secondary not doing their job. This is not due to us not teaching students correctly at the high school level. It is more about the fact that we're not helping students find what it is they want to do at the post-secondary level than it is about anything else. Students get to the post-secondary level, they figure out halfway through that what they're doing isn't really what they want to do. They realize that they've got to go another 4 years before they finally get what they do want, and then they drop out. And so this is more about how we prepare students to make these post-secondary decisions than it is about our education system in all the data that we look at. My office is big on dual credit for students. That is because the data tells us that dual credit makes a difference for students. Most students drop out after the first year of college, but students who do dual credit are 15% more likely to go on to a second year of college. And if they can get past that first year, that's a huge thing. And then our students that do dual credit are almost 20% more likely to actually earn something at college. And so those dual credit opportunities for students really make a difference. And I'm actually going to talk a bit about students with disability related to that here in just a bit, because that's a travesty right now that we've got to do a better job on. So it's also important to note that students whose parents earned a post-secondary degree are more likely to take dual credit. And that's mainly because our schools and people in our schools are not communicating as well as they really need to with students about what those opportunities are. And so most of the students who take advantage of those opportunities are pushed into those by their parents. And I'm not going to lie to you, I have a post-secondary degree. It's a terrible one. I use myself as a perfect example of what not to do. My post-secondary degree is a double major in Russian and Eastern Studies and history. And I have done data for a living my entire life. And so there's no alignment there at all between those two things. And the main reason I have the degree I had was because my parents told me that all you have to do is get a degree to be successful, not a specific degree, or that you needed to actually figure out what you want to do when you get to the post-secondary level. But that's because no one in my entire family has a post-secondary degree. And that's not just my immediate family, that's my entire family, cousins and everything. No one has a post-secondary degree except for me. And so I did not know about any of this before I got to the post-secondary level. I did not know about career planning or taking the right classes or even knowing what I wanted to do before I get to college. Most of the kids who do really well at college are those whose parents are talking to them. And I can guarantee you that both of my kids, I have two girls, have a plan for post-secondary already. They start those plans in 7th grade and they stay with them all the way through. My oldest daughter's a junior in high school and will be taking, going to the speed school at U of L for civil engineering. She's wanted to do that since 7th grade. And we've worked on creating a plan for her that whole way. But once again, that's because I'm in this world and I know that world and I'm helping my kids get to that world. But there's a lot of kids whose parents don't have that background, and it's really hard for them to understand these things without us doing everything we can to show those opportunities to them. So sorry to digress there a little bit, but that's a huge, it's just huge in my world. I'm such a proponent of talking to students, and you're going to hear me say that throughout this entire presentation, that we can't talk to students enough about post-high school and making decisions. I think it's important to note that you know, a lot of people look at CTE as that education program that's for kids who aren't going to be going to college. I've tried to already tell you guys that that's not true, but our data backs that up too. students who reach career readiness are actually 10% more likely to be academic ready than students who are not career ready. What that says is that our CTE programs help students find an interest, and they take more of an interest in all of their classes in school, as opposed to just being told that they need to learn math and English, and then not really seeing how that applies to their world and what they want to do. So 10% more likely to be academic ready if you're career ready. It's 9% more likely for students with disabilities. I still think that that's really good. With some of this other data I'm going to talk about, you're going to see that CTE is working well with students with disabilities. In fact, I think we're doing a better job than your traditional education programs there. We still got a long ways to go, though. I'm not going to lie about that. I have this next statistic in there because a lot of people are really down on education programs that are not post-secondary or considered college for students. But I'll tell you that our track students, this is our apprenticeship program, have higher employment and wages than any of the post-secondary ones. So if you look at these statistics, the median salary for a student with a bachelor's degree is $34,000, $32,000 for an associate's, $23,000 for some college, etc. For students in our apprenticeship program, the average median wage is $41,500. That's over $10,000 higher than a bachelor's degree, and that's 3 years out of high school, as opposed to this being 7 years out of high school. So our students are immediately making really good money. They're not going into debt, and we do have a 100% employment for all of our students in that program. So 3 years out of high school, 100% employment, $41,500 is their median salary. So an apprenticeship is a viable option for students. We're not saying this is the option for everybody, but we don't want to discourage kids that want to go down that path by telling them that they'll make more just by going to college, because that's just not what the data tells us. In the state right now, we brag a lot about how good our transition ready rate is, and the fact that we've made this huge gain in transition readiness, and that over 2/3 of our kids are transition ready. I personally think 2/3 is a really bad score. But still, we've been talking about how great we're doing with transition readiness. But if you look at some of our statistics, our transient students are only at 20% transition ready. Our non-white students are below 50%. Our free reduced lunch students are at 55%, and our students with disabilities are only at 30%. And so we've got a lot of work to do to help our students get to that post-secondary readiness that we really want them to be at. This last statistic I put in there specifically for today because I wanted you guys to see this. Students with disabilities are more likely to be career ready than academic ready. There's twice as many kids that are students with disabilities that are career ready that are academic ready. So twice as many career ready for students with disabilities. And I think this is because what CTE does for all students is it helps them find what they are good at and what they want to do, helps them do that in a hands-on approach. It makes all of the other subjects relevant to what they're learning in school, and allows those students to learn those concepts in a hands-on environment. The truth of this is it's actually the opposite for non-disability students. They're twice as likely to be academic ready than career ready. And it's even more true in the dual credit world. And so that's what I wanted to talk about really briefly with you, is the fact that we don't have a lot of our students with disabilities taking advantage of dual credit opportunities that are available to them. There's varying reasons for that, but several of the reasons have to do with feeling like the students would not be successful without their accommodations at the post-secondary level, and feeling like the students would not have a good experience at the post-secondary level. And so they dissuade students from doing dual credit at the post-secondary level, as opposed to encouraging that to show them that they can be successful in that environment. And so don't have the answers to that today, but I do want to share just the fact that for students with disabilities, the college does have to provide accommodations to the student. It's the high school's responsibility to communicate with the post-secondary what those accommodations are. It's not the student's responsibility the way it is at the post-secondary level. So at the post-secondary level, it's the student's responsibility to communicate with the school about their accommodations. But for secondary students doing dual credit, the high school is responsible for communicating those accommodations to the post-secondary so that the student can have those when they're there. And so just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that and communicated that with their schools and districts and anyone else that asked, because had a lot of students that are struggling to get those accommodations in place for them. The other thing that you need to know is that if it's a dual credit class offered at the high school level, those accommodations have to be identical to what they get in any other high school class. At the post-secondary, if the students go in there, the high school has to tell the post-secondary what those accommodations are. The post-secondary has a different list of accommodations, and so they have to apply every one of those that they offer to the student. But if they're taking the dual credit class on the high school campus, they have to be given every single accommodation that they would get in any other high school class. Anyways, I digress on that. If you have questions about that or you want to talk more about that, I can. Data is a big thing to me. We use data for every decision we make in the Career and Technical Education office. Everything we do is based on the numbers, and what the data tells us is right for students. So make every credit count is our slogan. We want everyone to understand that make every credit counts means that you have to know what students want to do after high school in order to apply that to what they're doing in the middle school and the high school level. You can't do that if you are not talking to students. And so the ILP is huge for us. It used to be in our office until the most recent reorg, and that was moved back to the Office of Teaching and Learning. But we still are partnering with that office to make sure that the ILP is used in every single area of school, because if you're not talking to these students, we're never going to be able to discover these things, which is what is it that they're wanting to do. And if you don't know what it is that they want to do, you are typically doing things like this. It's not just applicable to dual credit, it's applicable to everything at the high school level. We call it random acts of dual credit, where you just have kids taking random classes because it fits into their schedule or fits into their, you know, they're able to do it, or they have the scores to do it or something like that. But not all dual credit is actually beneficial for students. So let me stop and give you an example of what we're talking about here. My daughter wants to be a civil engineer. She wants to go to the speed school at U of L. U of L Speed School does not accept any math or science dual credit courses offered to our students. They want all of their students to take math and science through their professors there at the Speed School. So my daughter is not taking a single dual credit math or science class. She's taking the English classes, she's taking the humanities classes, and she's taking the oral communications classes because Speed School will accept those. If she were to take a math dual credit class right now and go to the U of L Speed School, that would be a wasted credit for her. What we're finding is that too many students are getting to the post-secondary level with a lot of dual credit, and it's not being accepted by the post-secondary institution. They're getting frustrated, and that's another reason why our students are not staying in college, because they're finding that half of their work did not apply to what they're wanting to do. And so we call that random acts of dual credit. That's true of the high school, even if it's not dual credit. If you're just putting students into classes because it fits in their schedule, or you think that they would, you know, it would be a good class for them based on their grades and stuff, then what you're doing is a disservice to those students. The first thing you need to do is talk to students, find out what their plans are, and then ensure that the scheduling matches their plans. I know that with students with disabilities, with students with IEPs, we do a much better job of that than we do for the typical student, because it's required by the IEP that we talk to students, but and set a plan for them. But I still think that a lot of those plans are involving random acts at the moment. So this is really what we're trying to get schools and districts to understand right now, is that this is what we want all of our students to have as a roadmap to get to what it is that they want to do after school. So as you can see here, this is mapped out based on the student wanting to go into accounting, exactly what classes they need to take at the high school level and then at the post-secondary level to help them get to that accounting This is another example. This is where we incorporate dual credit. So we specifically incorporate dual credit that makes a difference for the student that's going to apply to their degree program. So if the student knows early on that they want to go into computer science, then these are the classes they would need to take. Now, I'll just be very honest with you. We have 3 versions of this. This is the version without dual credit. This is the version with lots of dual credit. We have another version where dual credit's only taken at the junior and senior year because only about 5% of students are ready for dual credit classes in the 9th grade. Now, we do have a huge 90% success rate for the 9th graders that are doing dual credit as they're in the 9th grade, but it's still only about 5% of our students that are ready for that. But the point I'm trying to make here is that this is an exact roadmap, and it's a unique roadmap based on what the student wants to do, ensuring that the classes they're taking are actually going to count for them and for something at the post-secondary level. So this is what we're working on right now. This is what's required of the new Perkins 5. I don't know how much you guys have heard about Perkins 5, but Perkins is our federal funding that we use for CTE. And in Perkins, schools are required to create the secondary to post-secondary alignment documents and to use those to offer pathways to students. Once again, you can't do this though unless you're talking to students, and so knowing what they want to do makes a huge difference. I just have this in here as an example. By the way, I partnered with KCTCS on all of this, just so you know. That's why their logo shows up on a lot of this. But just as an example, the associate in art versus the associates in science, they're different. They have different classes embedded in them. As you can see on the associate of arts side, you can take a foreign language class and have that count towards the degree. But if you do that on the science side, it would not. So it does matter in terms of what the student wants to do and to make sure that we know what those requirements are. This is just a further example of how different the different associate's degrees are. It's not a one-size-fits-all for everybody. We do have 2 scholarships for dual credit that we work really hard to get students to take advantage of. The Work Ready Scholarship, by the way, this is going to change. The terminology is changing with some of the new budget language that was passed by the legislature, but the number of classes hasn't changed. So on the CTE side, the Work Ready side, you can take 2 dual credit classes per year for free. And then on the dual credit scholarship side, you can take 2 total. So that's 10 free dual credit classes that you can take and have it paid for through these scholarships. I've already talked about this, but I just wanted to say that those accommodations are high school responsibility when students are taking those dual credit classes. So we need to make sure that we're communicating that. I've already talked most about that. So this is the next part that we start out with the career pathways, but in order to get to a unique career pathway for a student, you have to actually explore careers and provide awareness of what those careers are after school. Damian Sweeney has done a great job with the ILP. If you guys have any questions about the ILP, Damian is doing a wonderful job of helping schools understand that the ILP is not a compliance document. It is a document to figure out what it is a student wants to do, and then to help them get to that goal by uniquely identifying courses and experiences that they would need to take along the way to get there. By the way, we really feel like career awareness ought to start at the elementary school level, and I'm going to talk about that in just a bit. But career awareness and career exploration should be happening at elementary, middle, and high school. It's not something you do when seniors are getting ready to graduate. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of our schools think, and they have career fairs for 12th graders as opposed to career fairs for middle school students. And so we're really encouraging pushing that career awareness and career exploration down as far as possible. And Perkins funds, with the new legislation starting this year, allows Perkins funds to be used all the way down to the 5th grade level for this purpose. Middle school career exploration, career study standards. Teresa Rogers is in charge of that. What I wanted to show you on this is that it does give you an idea of what we're talking about at each of the different levels and how to apply that at each level. The ILP becomes a major component at the middle school level, but there are parts of this career progression that happen at each of the levels. Now, it doesn't look the same at the elementary school level as it does at the middle or high, but there are ways you can include that in our elementary schools to at least help them start to understand what careers are, what jobs are, and what those things look like. This is just more of a continuation of how you apply those in each of these settings and the real world experiences that you can embed at each level for them. It's important to us that you are providing those real world experiences for students to allow them to see and touch and feel, as opposed to just hearing about what's going on in jobs. We have an entire career studies project going on right now that is going to be available to schools starting this coming fall to help them with resources and embedding career exploration, either as a standalone course in the school, but even better as a built-in component of the general education classes that are happening. I have a school in Kentucky that I think is the premier model for career exploration. It's Jeffersontown High School in Jefferson County. They have embedded career exploration into every single one of the students' classes. It's no longer a standalone class that students do. So the English teacher is covering English standards by having the students write papers on jobs and do presentations and PowerPoints on careers. They actually have to write a defense for what they want to do after school. The math teacher is covering math standards by having students do statistics, research, and ratios on supply and demand for jobs to help students understand that in Eastern Kentucky, there's only one position over the next 5 years available for opera singers, but there are hundreds of available jobs in, say, welding for students in that area of the state. That's not to say that if you want to be an opera singer that you can't be one. That is to say that you need to be aware of the ratios that are available of students who want to be opera singers to those that to the jobs that are out there for that. And most likely you're going to have to move if you live in Eastern Kentucky to be one. So, but math teacher is doing that. The science teacher is actually doing research and covering of data. Instead of just doing that on science experiments, they are doing observation and data recording by actually going to CTE classrooms and seeing how each one of those work and what the standards are in there and what they're doing in those classes. So it's still the science standard of observation and data recording, but they're doing it through the lens of career exploration. And social studies is having them do research projects, not just on the history, but how jobs and everything factor into that history. And so they're getting their normal standards. They're just doing it in a career exploration mindset for students. And so I just like to take an opportunity to highlight the work that they're doing there. And this this middle school career studies project is taking advantage of those best practices around the state and trying to get other schools to replicate that. Work-based learning. Before I go into this one too much, I want to tell you that the moment I mention work-based learning to schools, the first thing they say is, well, transportation's a problem. We can't get our students to the locations to do work-based learning. That is only one form of work-based learning. Work-based learning is much bigger than just co-op or on the job. We have a school, Henderson County High School. They have 15 school-based enterprises in their high school, one for every single one of their programs. And so the students are not needing transportation because they do their job right there in the high school. They market those school-based enterprises to the community, and they take on jobs for the communities and actually create something for those businesses in the area. It's just amazing what they do, but that does not require any form of transportation. And so I have to tell some of my biases here. I get really frustrated when people say they can't do work-based learning because they don't have transportation or they don't have employers in the area that are willing to take students on. There are so many different forms of work-based learning that can be incorporated throughout a student's career, whether that's virtual mentoring with someone in the business and industry world, whether that's job shadowing, whether that's just doing community service. Those school-based enterprises are amazing. We have those all across the state. And then, of course, co-op and apprenticeship are those kind of premier work-based learning. That is where they're going out into the area, but those aren't the only forms of work-based learning. So I don't like people to get too caught up on transportation as a barrier for students. This is a great opportunity. I wanted to talk about this. The Chamber of Commerce is partnering with us as well. This coming October and November, this says October, but it's October and November. They'll be paying for buses to take students to job sites so that students can spend the day in a business and industry world and learning about that. And it's totally free. All the school has to do is partner with the chamber and with a local business, and the chamber will pay for the transportation to get the students there. The chamber is actually releasing a virtual bus to business here in I think it's in a week or 2 weeks, where they have done virtual tours of businesses that people can watch right now, even during this COVID-19 situation that we're in, to really see what the world of business is really like. And so we're partnering very strongly with them. And as soon as those videos are available, I'll be happy to pass those on to Luann, who can send those out to everybody. But if you know of schools that would like to take advantage of this opportunity, Harper Smith, Smith at KentuckyChamber.com. By the way, we're sharing this PowerPoint with you guys, so you don't have to write all this down. But Harper Smith is the contact for that, and she is working so hard to get as many businesses and schools connected as possible. And this is not just for high school. They are mainly, now high schools can take advantage of this, but they're mainly targeting middle school students, because we are partnering with the chamber, and they realize just as much as we do that if we don't start to educate students on the available jobs after high school in the middle school, that they are not going to do that at the high school level. And so they are mainly targeting middle schools for this initiative and trying to get more and more middle schools to take advantage of this this October and November. And I pray that we're through all of this COVID-19 by then, so that this can actually happen. So let's all keep our fingers crossed on that. And I know it's turned our world upside down, but we're still moving forward right now on this. The last thing I want to talk about really fast, and I know I've talked about a lot, so I'm sorry. I just wanted to cover as much as I could with you guys to give you a better idea of the CTE world. But we do have a project with HDI UK and with several offices at KDE on career readiness for alternate diploma students. There are two components of that. The employability skills attainment record. It has 30 items that are scored from 0 to 2 that cover personal qualities and people skills, foundational academic skills, workplace knowledge skills. And if you're interested in knowing a lot more about that, we do have an ESAR administration guide that goes into all components of this and what all is required of that. The students should be starting this path with the CWEC at the 9th grade level. There's 4 courses. Work-based learning is embedded in all of these courses, and there is a work-based learning requirement in all of these courses for our students. But the second component is earning that CWEC, and you do that by completing each of the individual courses. Been asked several times by people, are we still awarding this year? Yes, even though there's no accountability this year, if students did complete all 4 courses and all the requirements of those courses, we still should award the Career Work Experience certification or certificate to them, even during this COVID-19 situation that we're in. We will not be doing accountability this year in any way, shape, or form. But I think it's still important that we award the certificate to the students who are deserving of that and that have worked to earn that. So with that, I've run my mouth a whole lot, and I see in the chat box that there's been lots of questions or at least comments. So I'm going to stop and answer those or talk about those. Sorry, I'm scrolling back up to see what all the questions were right now. Yes, that link to that video is in the PowerPoint that we're going to share with you. I'm trying to get every middle school to show that video on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade parent nights and opening nights to students to help them to start to think about their futures. If we can get students to just think about their futures, that's great. Talking with students should be done throughout the middle school and high school experience for students, and helping them to think about transition throughout the entire experience is really important. Yes, we are going to share the PowerPoint. I'm not sure when that one came through about the the barriers and the solution. I'm hoping that's about the school-based enterprises. School-based enterprises are a great solution to the transportation barrier. Henderson County, Amanda Lacer is one of the best contacts ever for this. They've actually branded, so just like any business, they've branded every one of their school-based enterprises with a name, a logo, and they take, they do the same work that you would do in the real world. They just do it there at the school level, so that transportation is not a barrier. Or if that's the J-Town solution, yes, J-Town. Actually, on that link I shared earlier, the tiny URL, J-Town's presentation that they did for me during these regional sessions is out there. Mary Beth Smith is the assistant principal at J-Town that's in charge of that project, and she is an amazing person. And just her drive and her teachers' drive. The general education teachers at that school are special. It almost makes me want to cry. I almost tear up every time I think about that school, and I apologize for getting emotional, but they don't think that they're doing anything special at all at that school. In fact, the science teacher told me that he doesn't do anything special. All he's doing is teaching science standards to students. And I'm like, but you're teaching science standards through the lens of career exploration and helping students find their passion in life. And they just don't understand how special they are. And so anybody that wants to reach out to that school, Mary Beth Smith is a wonderful person and a great contact. And she's always willing to talk to everyone else about how to incorporate that. And they have a ton of resources that they've developed for how that can be done. The ESAR guide, yeah, Sherry, you and Jill, I don't know if you're online still right now, but is the ESAR guide posted on our website yet, or is that still being approved at this moment? It needs one more edit. Thanks, Jill. I appreciate that. But as soon as that's done, I'll share that with Luann, and we can send that out, and it will be posted on our website. And with that, I think I've covered everything in the chat box, so I'm going to shut up now. I just appreciate your guys' time today.